Okay, good afternoon, everybody. We're under a tight time scale here. My name is Angela Rolfe. What am I doing? I'm chairing this session. Who am I? I'm wearing my President of ICOMOS Ireland hat at the moment. And we're on session 4, quality. Quality's been raised quite a lot already under various other headings, but we're going to have another go at it. I was given very specific topics to talk about, but I was only allowed one slide, which I hope is here. Which one do I press? Green. Green? Oh, hang on. No. Okay, well, I'll start talking anyway. Quality is a tricky thing. I've resorted to the dictionary. It's the standard of something as measured against other things of a similar kind, and it's the degree of excellence of something, or a distinctive attribute or characteristic possessed by someone or something. But perhaps we should take a more philosophical view, that the quality is innate and that it cannot be precisely defined, but it is recognized through experience. Most of you, I saw hands go up earlier, would know, as architects, the standard project management triangle that assumes a balance between time, scope, and money will produce quality, which may work for the production of widgets, but does not work for buildings. But it also ignores climate, community, and cultural heritage, and all the other ingredients of a safe, healthy, happy places for people. There are several important policies and initiatives that in different ways aim to ensure that quality is prioritized in giving new life to historic buildings and places. And I've just illustrated some of them there. First one, which has been mentioned before, the National Policy on Architecture, Places for People, has set a quality agenda to achieve sustainability as a key action. And it was to have published, and I quote here, an objective and comprehensive national design quality criteria in line with the circular economy principles to apply to all phases of the built environment: design, construction, management, conservation, repurposing, and disassembly. And whatever you're having, I would suggest. There's a lot of work to go into that. But there is also now already the Davos Baukultur quality system, which is a tool for evaluating the quality of the built environment. It focuses on 8 criteria that promote high-quality, sustainable development through governance, functionality, environment, economy, diversity, context, sense of place, and beauty. This system assesses the quality of places, placing social, cultural, and emotional criteria on an equal footing to technical, environmental, and economic criteria, and prioritizes cultural values and long-term investments over short-term economic gain, and encourages the adaptation of the built environment. So I'd say it's a very good assessment tool of probably existing built environment, but it doesn't tell you or show you how to achieve quality. It gives you indicators. The new European Bauhaus, Krakow Declaration, there again, heritage and transformation, which has been mentioned several times, which was jointly issued by the Architects' Council of Europe, Europa Nostra, and ICOMOS in 2024. And I will just quote one of its guiding principles, because I'm sure Elena will be talking about it more, is to champion quality as a core guiding principle of governance and funding mechanisms. And that leads me on to wearing firmly my ICOMOS hat, the European Quality Principles for EU-funded interventions with potential impact on cultural heritage, which is actually where we're at. They were produced in 2020 by an ICOMOS expert group under the mandate of the European Commission. It's supported by the Court of European Auditors and was adopted by the European Investment Bank and EU DG Regio, who those who don't have Europe speak, is the Director General for Regional and Urban Policy for the European Commission. And so it's specifically for the implementation for cohesion-funded projects, which is also what we're talking about today. And I wonder how many of you are aware of the European Quality Principles. The main objective of these quality principles is to provide guidance for all stakeholders directly or indirectly engaged in EU-funded interventions that could impact on cultural heritage, mainly built heritage and cultural landscapes. And to me, almost everywhere is a cultural heritage landscape. The European Quality Principles are about process and focus on the core issue of quality, providing a summary of key concepts, international charters and conventions, standards, as well as a very useful summary of the ICOMOS ethical and technical guidance on the subject of quality. The EU Quality Principles provide specific recommendations and a checklist of selections criteria for decision makers. These are how most of you are appointed to carry out restoration work, adaptation work that meets the quality principles. There are in total 40 recommendations. I include just 4 of them here. The recognition of cultural heritage as a common good and responsibility should be a precondition of quality. Cultural heritage conservation should be understood as a long-term investment for society. Briefs and tenders should reinforce a conservation approach in which proposals comply with the selection criteria of the Quality Principles document in order to uphold the cultural heritage and its associated values. And even mentioned procurement. During the procurement of the work, a 2-envelope system should be employed for ranking technical offers separately from the financial one and giving priority to the former. And EU-funded heritage initiatives should facilitate civil society and community participation. So there's a lot of overlap between the new European Bauhaus. I'll mention the 7 selection criteria for projects with the potential to impact on cultural heritage. First is knowledge-based, in other words, conduct research and surveys before you start. Somebody else mentioned that this morning. Compatibility, keep and acknowledge and keep the spirit of the place. Public benefit, keep in mind your responsibility towards society in general. Proportionality, do as much as necessary and as little as possible. We've already heard that. Discernment, call upon skills and experience. So know your limitations. Sustainability, make it last. Good governance, the process is part of the success. These key questions were designed as an evaluation tool. There again, that decision makers, which probably aren't most of you in the room, should ask themselves to assess the quality of proposed cultural heritage projects and to determine whether such projects are worthy of EU or other funding. And it's my personal view that these quality principles and selection criteria should be applied to all publicly funded projects in terms of giving the common good and civil society a proper stake in it. The last document there, which is a new document, the ICOMOS champions the recognition of heritage as the 4th pillar of Sustainable Development Goals, emphasizing its critical role in shaping a sustainable future. In January this year, ICOMOS Europe Expert Group launched a report, European Energy Performance Buildings Directive and Cultural Heritage. The expert group gathered evidence from over 19 EU and non-EU countries through national fact sheets, thematic analysis, and case studies. The report proposes the creation of a European Observatory on Heritage and Climate Transition, a collaborative platform under ICOMOS and European institutions to coordinate data, exchange best practices, and align policies, and concludes that Historic buildings are not barriers to decarbonisation. They are part of the solution. By valuing repair, reuse, informed adaptation, Europe can advance its climate goals while preserving the architectural and cultural values that define its identity. The European Performance Building Directive's implementation represents a historic opportunity to make conservation a cornerstone of a sustainable, low-carbon future. So after all that, I think there is a very noble Irish tradition of make, do and mend, particularly state-owned properties. Indeed, in the early years of the state, decisions were taken to rebuild the GPO, the Customs House and the forecourts, convert the Duke of Leinster's townhouse to a Parliament building, and more recently, the Museum of Modern Art in the Royal Hospital Kilmainham and the National Museum in Collins Barracks. And the OPW provides continuity of stewardship of state properties. This morning, Sarah was talking about the National Concert Hall. That was on my portfolio 20, 30 years ago. So we hand over properties from one generation to another. The Crawford was also in my portfolio 20 years ago. So it's wonderful to see him moving forward with a new generation as I get grayer and older. The formal structures for a long-term stewardship is not yet available to our towns, villages, and neighbourhoods. However, the Thrive programme, with the national European Bauhaus principles embedded, encourages communities to engage with these heritage-led regeneration projects, leading them to instinctively understand that the care and consideration given to these exemplar, high-quality projects we are seeing today, and that if they feel that their historic building or place is respected, then they will become its stewards in the future. I believe that the ERDF Thrive funding programme led by Nikki, supporting heritage-led regeneration of vacant and underused public properties, demonstrates how strategic investment can ignite local regeneration, bringing design, innovation, and community vision together. A strong culture of adaptation and reuse will deliver better outcomes for the planet, communities, and our irreplaceable heritage resources. So enough from me. I'm now going to invite Elena Montani to speak. She is represents the European Commission and is the expert on the new European Bauhaus, and I think has been overwhelmed by some of what she's heard in the last day or so. So Elena, and she has a very tight time schedule.
Okay. Thank you so much. And indeed, I've been overwhelmed about many great initiatives presented here. First of all, I would like to really thank everybody for the invitation. It's a great honor to be here. I was not expecting such an amazing setting with all these presentations. I would like really to thank Nikki and Emily for the great organization and then for following me and taking care of me so well. So let me start. And indeed, I need to apologize in advance because at 3 sharp I will need to take a taxi to the airport. So if you see me squeezing out, there is a reason. It's not that I'm getting bored. Indeed, I come from my office in Brussels where we think about the new European Bauhaus, we develop strategies, we think about policies, but this is the moment we really touch with your experience and what your projects, what this has brought to. But let me go back to the origins, because we speak a lot about the new European Bauhaus, but what is the new European Bauhaus? I'm not sure everybody knows the origins of this, and I would like to recall that in 2020, after the European Commission launched the European Green Deal, which was putting forward a new ambition for a sustainable future, the President launched this vision. So President von der Leyen decided to launch this project as a vision, which was to put together the three values of sustainability, inclusion, and beauty, and to give the citizens a future and a project where they could co-create together. So we have talked a lot about quality today. So imagine how difficult it is to define beauty. So this is something that has created a lot of discussions. But the innovative idea is really that these three values need to be integrated and go hand in hand, and that they need to become really the implementation vision and the implementation body of the European Green Deal on the ground. There are not only these three values, there are also three principles, which are to co-create things together. So is the participatory approach, a transdisciplinary approach that was also recalled in many instances, and also the multi-level approach. And we see how important it is to create a governance that works on different levels. So this was the initial vision. And then how did we develop the vision? We developed it through a co-creation process. So really, this is a very special policy in the European Commission realm. It's something that was co-created together with the community, with the architects, with professionals, with citizens, with stakeholders, in a way that really brought the vision and the priorities together. It was 6 months of co-design, and this is why we managed to achieve so much since 2020. So last year we took stock of what we have achieved in these last 5 years. We really spent the second half of the year in reflecting on what has been done. First of all, we have achieved a community. So we have a NEB community, which was not only the ones we co-created the policy together with us, but it's something that we kept alive. And now it has more than 2,000 member organizations. If you're not part of it, I really invite you to join the community. It includes researchers, public authorities, stakeholders, professionals, and the idea is really that this is a community that still co-creates the policy, but also initiates labs and also local initiatives in a co-design way. The president has announced at the beginning of this mandate that this community should grow. So this is something that we have very much as a priority for the next phase. We have funded over 700 projects in Europe, but also beyond Europe. Here I would really like to mention Ukraine, because it's very inspiring what Ukrainian stakeholders are doing with the new European Bauhaus as a really a vision, but also an implementable tool to reconstruct their cities already from now. And so we propose something, but what we learn is much more than what we are actually giving these stakeholders. And we have mobilized over 9 funding programs. So the total allocation in this current multi-annual financial framework is 1.4 billion. Some has been spent already, and some will be spent until 27. The biggest funding for these are the research program, but also cohesion funding, which has been mentioned a few times already, and it deserves to be mentioned because it gives a big pot. But of course, it's in the hands of the member states. So there is also a variety of ways they are spending those. So this is what we have achieved, but this is also how we fit in the current priorities. So of course the Commission has gone through a reprioritization, not only the Commission, but the overall European Union. And we are very proud that the European Bauhaus is still part of the priority and actually serving multiple objectives. So first of all, it's part of the clean transition. So it's serving the sustainable prosperity dimension. But it also now goes to the next phase. So it aims to achieve a scaling up of the innovations which were developed until now. So the business dimension, the innovation dimension is becoming also more and more important. We are also proud to be in the EU Democracy Shield, which was adopted at the end of last year. So because we are serving as a tool to stimulate participatory approaches at the local level, and not least, of course, in urban planning and urban development. And then last but not least, the social social inclusion and affordability dimension. And this brings me to my next slide, which is on the priority of the Commission in terms of affordable housing. There is a housing crisis. It was mentioned. I think this affordability dimension is something that where I would really be keen in more reflections. We heard a lot about quality today, but it's not only about giving quality, it's also about providing citizens with affordable solutions. And the housing crisis is not at all a crisis about buildings. It's really a crisis which is tearing apart our social fabric, is tearing apart communities. So it's something that we need to address urgently. Is happening in basically every big city, but also in the small cities which are being maybe abandoned, but where prices go up because there are maybe touristy places, so that still people cannot afford to live there. So this is something that the Commission has prioritized. This is a sentence from the President, who has decided to adopt an affordable housing package by the end of last year to give a strong message to Europe, but also a message that this housing crisis should be addressed with a joint effort with member states and also all relevant stakeholders. So on the 16th of December, the Commission adopted a package which includes a strategy, the Affordable Housing Plan. It also includes a construction strategy and a revision of stated rules on housing. And it also includes the NEB. We are there because, of course, the NEB is serving the purpose not only of tackling affordability, but also to supporting a regeneration of urban areas and rural areas in a way which also strengthen the social fabric, because it brings inclusion and sustainability and quality together. So we have adopted in this package communication, which is the strategy of the Commission on the new European Bauhaus for the next years. It's called From Vision to Implementation. So it gives really the direction that we have created this vision together. We had a lot of experimentation, and now we need to move forward, scale up the new European Bauhaus and bring it to really changes on the ground. And we have also proposed, and I think this is interesting, a recommendation, council recommendation to member states, because we are still hoping that the member states would play an even more important role, because the member states are the bridge in between the European and the local level. So without the active role of the member states, the new European Bauhaus cannot deliver. The funding opportunities cannot reach the local level, and also the local level cannot be supported as much as it's needed. And yesterday we had a meeting. There were many good ideas around, so I think it's useful that they're also brought to the member states. This recommendation is now being discussed in the Council, as there were many discussions on where it should fit, because the new European Bauhaus is so cross-cutting. Should it be the Social Affairs Council or the Environment Council or Culture? And at the end is the Environment Council, which is taking care of it. But of course, it will be a council recommendation, so not only from that formation. And it's on the way to be adopted under the Cyprus presidency. So it would be great if the Irish presidency can take it up and bring it to implementation. And sorry, there is a duplication here. So I just move on. Here is a screenshot of the three main objectives that we have in our strategies. The first one is very much linked to the priorities of this Commission on the environment. It's linked to circular economy, bioeconomy. There was a bioeconomy strategy adopted at the end of last year, which is very much complementary. So of course, the objective, one of the objectives of the NEB is to push solutions which are sustainable and also can create create bio-based and circular innovations in the built environment. The second priority is to trigger participatory approaches at the local level, and also to bring to inclusive and resilient neighborhoods. And the third one is to harness the power of creative and creative sectors, so to really bring them in. There were some projects today who brought in really the artists, and you can see that they bring an added value, and it's not only a luxury, but it's really can make projects more sustainable and more worth in the long term. Here, I'm a bit embarrassed to show these slides, I must admit, after this mosaic of policy initiatives, but I thought it was important to announce that I think it was actually today that we have finally published, this was our colleagues from the Environment Department, they have worked a lot on our guidance document, which is supporting stakeholders on life cycle approaches to decarbonize the European buildings. And this is a very useful tool because it shows with figures, but also examples from all around Europe, how we can actually support the decarbonization of building. It shows also that the sustainability dimension goes hand in hand with competitiveness. So it also demystifies some of the arguments which are often used to say that new buildings are more efficient and more sustainable than refurbishing or renovating old buildings. And it gives a number of tools that can be used. So I just, this is a little bit of publicity to this because it was one of the announcements that we made, and we are proud that this document is finally out. And there is also an important study that DG Environment is carrying out to support the overall housing package on conversion of offices into housing buildings, and which is also demystifying some of the arguments which are often used in moving forward to demolish before actually repurposing or refurbishing buildings. Now this is to tell you what are our main working tools and enablers to carry out our strategy forward. The first, as I said, is the NEB community, which we want to make it to make more representative of the new priorities, including in bringing in more stakeholders involved in housing, but also in connecting more to grassroots projects. So something we are really trying to stimulate through the community is also to go more local and to make sure that there are local projects starting, but also connecting to other local projects around Europe. The second is funding and guidance and governance, and of course funding is key. We have funding until 27. Now we see what the negotiations will bring for the new European Bauhaus, but we hope to have still a strong research and innovation component, but also strong rollout component in order to also fund deployment and scaling up of innovation projects. We are also building a very ambitious project, which is a NEB Academy, which is something that is supposed to link knowledge, so all the knowledge from the projects, and turn it into usable tools for skilling and educating, so skilling workers, but also students, but also to support businesses for development and for creating a new European Bauhaus projects and innovations. And then the last but not least, I mentioned already the international dimension. I mentioned Ukraine, but we have a lot of other countries which start to be interested in the new European Bauhaus. We have Japan, where there was the World Expo last year, Mexico, Brazil, and other candidate countries close to Europe. So there is a lot of excitement around this, and we also ask member states to help us in bringing this vision around the world. Here, I just wanted you to see a few flagship projects. Just to mention, we have projects funded under the Research and Innovation Program, which take care of new funding instruments like NEBSTAR. We have projects, this is ERDF, so it's from Cohesion, is a Tallinn building, a Soviet-era prefabricated building, which has been renovated. So when we speak about cultural heritage, it can mean very different things from country to country, of course. And then we have a project in Barcelona, which is about improving playgrounds. This is funded by the EIT, where we have a very active community, which is really promoting NEB everywhere. And then just a last, but Nick, you already did my job. I wanted to promote the NEB Festival, and it's in between the 9th and the 13th of June in Brussels, but also there are many side events around. The program was published last week, so you can find it online. There will be many high-level speakers, but also it's a fair, it's a fest, and it's really a family gatherings and not only a sharing of best practice. So it's really a moment to celebrate, but also to plan forward. So I really hope I can see many of you back in Brussels during the festival. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Elena. That was very interesting, and you've done a huge amount of work, and I think we'll be hearing more from you shortly. Now I'd like to invite Dr. Claudio Gulli, is that right? Who's going to talk about an amazing palazzo, a project for Palermo and Europe. Thank you.
Hello. Can you hear me? First of all, thanks, many thanks to Nikki, Emmeline, and Julia who created the link. I'm very happy to be here. I learned a lot. I hope to say something which can be interesting for you. Sorry for my English. I'm not an architect. I also want to say that since the beginning. I'm an art historian. So what I will say has to do with a palace and with a city, but first of all, it's also something that has to do with two very normal and simple and private individuals, not with institutions, not with the European Union, not with a government, a state, a region running a project. Of course, today we're specifically talk about that, about how can institutions do something. So this is a little bit out of the wonderful symposium we're having today. This is much more about what individuals can do. I think it's better to look a little bit at this object. We're looking at it in a 19th century photograph of the city harbor of Palermo. Palazzo Butera is this gigantic wall in white that you can have in the middle of the photo. It's facing the sea. It has been since the beginning, I would say, since the late 17th century, the seat of one of the most important aristocratic family of Sicily, the princes of Butera. They used the palace basically as a representation tool. It was important to show how big was the palace and how you can compare this palace to a royal palace. 30 antechambers in the royal palace in Palermo, 20 antechambers in the first palace of the Sicilian aristocracy. We will go in depth a little bit on that later. Everything changed in 2015 for this palace, because two people, Francesca Frodeangeli and Massimo Valsecchi, who visited Sicily for the first time in their life in 2014, decided to buy it, to acquire it from 27 different heirs. The reason was not to... the former owners were 27 because they were all the heirs of the Branciforti, this family. I can go and talk about that for a long time. I don't suggest to do that. They were basically the heirs of this family, the Branciforti, who extinguished in 1815. So the palace passed through another family, the Lanza, princes of Trabia, and it was lived until 1937. In 1885, the Lanza got an important marriage with Giulia Florio, who was one of the richest family in Palermo. And so let's say that new money arrived to the palace, and so the palace was changed for the last time, let's say, at the end of the 19th century. But from 1937, the palace was not more lived. And from 1947, it started to be rent, first to public authorities. Then in 1968, there was even a referendum in the Faculty of Architecture in Palermo, if the Faculty of Architecture had to buy or not the palace. The students voted no, and they won. And so the palace was not bought by the university, and it became a school. From 1968 to 1982, this was the highest point in the decay history I'm very quickly telling you. And in 1982, the 27 former heirs took back the palace in their property, so the rent was out. And so they ran it privately for, basically they rented it for marriages, little fairs, concerts. Let's say that it was a commercial use, as many other aristocratic palaces in the city are actually doing. What happened in 2015 is that these two people, first of all, they're not from Palermo. They are from Milan and Turin. Francesca is born in Milan. Massimo is born in Genoa. Francesca is half from Milan, half from Turin. Massimo is half from Genoa, half from Milan. Let's say the industrial part of Italy, as I'm sure you know. And they lived in London for almost 50 years. And the reason for buying this palace was not at all that they wanted to move to Palermo, because Palermo is beautiful. Of course, Palermo is beautiful, but this is not the point. The point is that they are art collectors, and that they wanted a place for showing their collection, their art collection. For 20 years, they tried to do that in Milan. They weren't able. For other years, I can't really say how many, they tried to do that in England. They weren't able. So at the end, they decided to leave London. Brexit was part of the problem, of course. They are absolutely Europeans as souls. They feel Europeans. They feel this project is a completely European project. The aim of this project is to bring, in some sense, a piece of Europe in Palermo. It's to make stronger the European attitude of Palermo, and also more generally the international attitude of Palermo. The palace undertook a gigantic restoration, I would say. The palace is 9,000 square meters. It has 3 floors, let's say. We found many, many things. I will not, again, say too much on that, because I want to concentrate on other aspects. But I want to stress the fact that these 4 years of restoration, 2016, 2020, were essential for us, for all of us who were working there, for understanding the palace, for listening to the palace. Giovanni Cappelletti, who should be here more than me, who is the architect who led all the project, the architect-in-chief who guided a group of architects, once in a conference said that basically it was just a process of listening, because listening to the palace has started to reveal something, the root of a jacaranda in the courtyard, who found its way in a drain pipe. The frescoes that we found, demolishing the rooms of the school that we found. But of course, the palace needed to have new functions, and the process of listening was absolutely essential also in that. We took these years for studying and for understanding where the stable were, where the archive was, where let's say we wanted to understand where the functions of the 18th century palace, but of course there was not at all a sense of nostalgia in doing that. We didn't want to make a project on the memory of the 18th century palace. We just did want to understand the functions of every single space for using it in a different way. So all the ground floor is used now as an exhibition space. It's all dedicated to contemporary art, while the upper floors are much more connected with the decorative arts, and we will see in a moment, and with the historic furniture of the palace. But it was also very important in this to let the visitor understand what was our intervention. So the architecture is all underlined with new materials who were absolutely absent in the palace, like iron and glass. These are signs of our intervention, and they in some sense create a new reading of the palace. It's the result of this process of listening. Here, for example, we did find the floor. The floor was covered by another floor, and of course we restore it. But the staircase, it's almost evident, I think. It's a new invention who is supposed to read in a new way the architecture of the past. But this was extremely important specifically for the restaurant. This is one of the many slides I could show you, looking at a space, how it changed all along the years. The restaurant is very important for us because it connects the palace with a promenade, which is on the top of the civic walls of the 16th century. Sorry, and this is something that we made with these stairs. These stairs basically connect a private palace, which becomes open to the public, with the restaurant, with a public space, because this promenade that you can see better here, this promenade is public, and we open that daily. We wanted, basically, this is in some sense the real manifesto of the project, I would say. We wanted basically to transform this wall of aristocratic power, which implies the fact that nobody can see the sea from the city. We wanted to convert it into a gate, into a door, into a new possibility of looking at the historic center. And this is physically possible via this small staircase. They could seem just a detail, but they're not at all. They are absolutely the real sense of the project, I would say. Again, when we get in, I think it's important to underline how much we didn't want to stop to the restoration, to the preservation, to the conservation that, of course, was essential to our work, and especially my work as an art historian. We know everything about this room. We know the name of the stucco maker, of the wood carver, of the one who put the copper on the chimney piece. We know everything about this room. It's perfectly recorded in the archives. It's 1765, 1766. It's Salvatore Branciforti, the patron, Francesco Alaimo for the stuccos, Girolamo Carretti for the wood carvers, and the paintings and all the rest. Sicily has always been considered a little bit at the end of the world, especially of the art world. We did want to place Sicily at the center in a new way, and we're trying to do that with the restoration, let's say, giving importance to these people who, in fact, were able in 1765 to work for the Prince of Butera, who was one of the most important patrons in the city at the moment. Someone who looked at what was happening in Naples, in Vienna, and who was taking ideas from there. This is a room conceived for hosting porcelains. Porcelains were the new materials of the 18th century. It's a completely enlightenment room, I would say. Enlightenment room, sorry. But this is only the part of the work, I would say. The other part, which is the other part I think it's even more important. It's the collection of Massimo and Francesca Valsecchi. So the possibility to have here in Palermo objects which can be used for making the history of the world civilization or of the European civilization, because the collection is much more about Europe than about the world. This is the way for placing Sicilian art and architecture in a context, in an atlas. And this is what makes Sicily important, because if Sicily is in a void, nobody can really understand the place. If it's in an atlas, if it's together with objects that you can compare, you can say, this is what in Venice they were doing at the same time, or this is what in London they were doing 20 years after or 20 years later. Sicily starts to become what it is, a place, a context which can be resonant for the world and for Europe especially. One of the last points I want to stress is about contemporary art and contemporary interventions we made in Palazzo Butera. This is the Gothic room, probably the most astonishing room of Palazzo Butera. It has been created in 1811 by an architect called Carlo Kenchi. This architect already understood that our greatness, again, our place in the world, is not just the classic era. You know, in Sicily you have the best Greek temples in Italy, Segesta, Serinunte, Agrigento. And already in the 18th century, the cultivated architects were aware of that. Everybody from Europe, even from Ireland, were coming to Sicily, just for seeing that, just for seeing Greek temples and Roman villas. But already someone understood, like this architect, Carlo Kenchi, that especially in Palermo, you have another great aspect of European civilization, which is Middle Ages, with the intersection of arts that you can have, especially in Sicily, in the Middle Ages. In fact, our great moment in history, it's not the 15th century like in Florence, it's not the 16th century like in Venice, it's the 12th century, when Roger II was basically the king of Sicily, and the kingdom of Sicily arrived until Tripoli or Corfu, and the kingdom was something important. And at that moment, in the Royal Palace of Palermo, you can have the Palatine Chapel, or in Monreale and in Palermo, you can have great Norman art and architecture. And this was mixed with Arab style. In 1811, Carlo Kenchi wanted to answer to that word, wanted to create a neo-Gothic room. Even in the documents I found, this room is called Gothic. It was absolutely aware and even clarified by the document. So the room is called Gothic, but this Gothic is half Arab, half Byzantine, and half Norman, I would say. Yeah, 1/3, 1/3, 1/3. But I think it is also important, looking at this image with you, what we were able to do for this room. Because you can see there is a red and a yellow mirror in this room. This is, of course, not made in 1811. This is made in 2018 by two French artists, Anne and Patrick Poirier, who worked with us since the beginning. They were with us during the restoration. They looked at the palace, they listened to the palace exactly as we did. They are very close to Massimo and Francesca. This place, I think it's an act of care, but also an act of friendship in some sense, because Francesca and Massimo spent all their life in the art, in the world of the art. They are collectors. They, in a very different way than many others. They don't go to openings or to fairs. They just appreciate in some sense and have strong friendships with some artists, really a few. And this happy few was the one who basically did everything with us during the years of the restoration and when the project, let's say from 2016 to 2020. So Anne and Patrick Poirier did 5 artworks specifically for Palazzo Butera. And this is something that can happen only if there is this sort of values which are shared between the patrons, between the owners or the clients, as I heard today, and the artists. There's not just the mirrors, but also the carpet that you can see in this. This has been made. The carpet has been made in Nepal, and the mirrors have been made in France. With this way of looking at the palace, I think we were able also to conceive a room like that. This is the first room of the second floor. All the second floor is open to the public. There are 20 rooms, 2,000 square meters, just in the second floor. The first floor with the terrace is just 3 rooms open to the public, and all the ground floor is open to the public as well. So let's say that the 70% of the palace is open to the public now. We do 40,000 visitors per year. But this room is particularly important because we used, again, the history of Sicily for creating something new, which is always the purpose, let's say. These 10 paintings were hung on over the doors and the windows of a room identical to this one in the late 18th century. This was not the original position. We understood that during the research. And we wanted to give them importance because they depict the cities in which the Branciforti were princes or dukes or earls. Basically, the fiefdom, so the lands they were exploiting for creating the big palace in Palermo. The idea was to give back. Today in the museum world, we talk a lot of giving back something to someone, but who is this someone? In our idea, at the beginning, we had to give back this palace to the people living in Butera, in Mazzarino, in Barrafranca, the people that still live in the places in which the Branciforti were princes. Also because from these paintings you can trace the history of these places, and it was very important for them. It was the first time for them for seeing the paintings from an eye perspective. They were always seen from the bottom up in a perspective which tells you a lot about the relationship between the servants and the prince. We didn't want to go on with the history, with the fragile history of Sicilian aristocracy. We wanted to clarify immediately that this has to be read, but in a new way, in a more horizontal way, in a more democratic way, if you want. And this is the end of the presentation and of the palace. Also, I would say we involved another artist who created all the ceilings, which were not completed with frescoes or stuccos. This is another point I want to probably underline better. Contemporary art always in Palazzo Butera arrives when there is nothing to restore, when there is nothing to preserve. Because the idea is to make a work of art, basically, in every single detail. We understood how the palace works. So the antechambers with frescoes, 8, 6 because 2 have been destroyed in 1922. And so what can we do in the rooms destroyed, which are the ones that I'm showing you, in the rooms which were destroyed in 1922? Just for making an apartment. They destroyed 2 frescoes of the 18th century just for making an apartment. The answer was, let's go there with contemporary art. Let's involve artists like David Tremlett. He's a British artist. One of his best artwork is the entrance of the Tate Britain, which was made in 2005. And he, in fact, made for Palazzo Butera 20 different ceilings, always following this idea that where there was nothing historical, we can add something. I would love that in 2200, people will look at this place and say, okay, this is made in 1760 and this is made in 2018. Because this is the moment that, let's say, we have to do something that will stay forever, we hope. This was the moment in which we had to do something that has to stay together forever. Because, again, this happened during the restoration. I want to stress that because I think it's very important. Then it's too late in some sense. And our new project is this new wing. This is called Palazzo Piraino. It's connected to Palazzo Butera. This is how it looked at the beginning. The facade on the side of the sea is already restored. And again, here there will be a lot of contemporary art. This approach will be even more pushed because there has been less things to preserve. The facade and just 3 rooms were historic. This is again 1760, and the same for the rooms I'm telling you. But the rest of the palace has been never furnished with anything historical, and everything of the 18th century has been destroyed during the 20th century. So basically, the idea of completing this palace with contemporary architecture will be much more strong, I would say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Claudio. You had the dream clients and the dream location and everything else we could all ever wish for. And I'd like to ask Andrée Dargan, the Dún Laoghaire Rathdown county architect, to come and give her presentation. Do I just press to... Okay, very good. So I think it's just that one.
Thank you.
You have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll go quickly. So this is a project in Dún Laoghaire and Dún Laoghaire town. It's George's Place and Kelly's Avenue, and it's a Thrive project. So we've got Strand 2 funding for it. We're about to start into the commencement of tender drawings. That's the stage we're at the moment. So this is the taster slot. So actually I'm going to focus a little bit more about how we've come up to the point that we're at in the project at the moment. And a couple of my colleagues are here. Laura's here, who's the project architect, and also Hannah, who's actually our year-out student architect who did these lovely sketches. So they're here and are available to chat about the project in detail, afterwards. So I suppose setting the whole thing in its background, we try to do our placemaking based on sort of policy, and I suppose that feeds into the whole community aspect and inclusion of the new European Bauhaus. So I suppose nothing is more democratic than our county development plan, and we have lots of consultation, and in DLR everybody is very engaged in anything in relation to that. And obviously our elected members make the whole decision on the county development plan, so that is from the bottom up. So within our county development plan, then we have a Dún Laoghaire urban framework plan. We've been doing this for a good number of years, and that sets out a lot of the policy and things that we'd like to progress within Dún Laoghaire town. Within the urban framework plan, then we have 3 significant themes. So they are the creating the synergies between the town and the sea, and then placemaking, creating vitality, and then linking the Dún Laoghaire town with the neighbouring villages. So I suppose within that, again, we have placemaking. These are all the subsections, and creating a high quality urban environment is really important in relation to that. And also we can see that increasing the residential population in the town is also really important for bringing people into the town and creating employment and vitality. So I suppose all these feed into this project. So the project is just highlighted there, and you can see nearly the 3 themes run together. The red line sort of shows our linkages into the neighbouring villages either direction. It's sitting in a little sort of quiet corner between the town main street, Georgia Street, and the sea. And then it's in a quiet area, so we do want to get vitality and placemaking back into this area. The long street there is Georgia Street, and that's a Living Streets project we have going on at the moment, as well as trying to create a 10-minute neighbourhood. And we had over 7,000 submissions for the public consultation that went out on that project. So it's absolutely enormous engagement in our area. And the little spot just where the site is marked, that's where our project sits, so sort of just between the main street and the sea. So I suppose we started out with a Thrive Strand 1 application, and we were successful at that. So we were delighted to get 200,000, and that helped us bring a team on board that actually did a lot of the public consultation. So that was AP&E, and we developed our integrated urban strategy working alongside AP&E. It was a very comprehensive strategy and actually proved to be really worthwhile. So these were some of the public consultations that we did as part of it. So all the citizen and stakeholder engagement. We did workshops, we put out newsletters, we did paper drops, we did a website, we did online surveys, etc. So I suppose in terms of the new European Bauhaus, we would always try to do, I suppose, quality and beauty, I suppose, in as much as we can, and while there are limitations, obviously, sometimes funding, sometimes relation to client will, etc., etc. And I suppose sustainability, again, we would sort of always be quite focused on that. I suppose the community engagement and the bottom-up approach is the one that we find a little bit harder to maybe handle in a way, because as a local authority, when you go out, people tend to think it's it's an official way in some way, and then they feed into other issues that are going on. So it is a new approach to actually do this whole community engagement and have that drive the project sort of going forward. But in this project, we did that. We had junior workshops. We did things as part of open house, etc. Some of the questions people got asked, like that one there, sort of what activities would you imagine the building actually having if you were to imagine it in a few years' time? And you can clearly see that there was a band of activities that the public wanted. So the main ones were the development of educational training facilities, the social and community hub, an event, exhibition and performance space, and then other ones like art and creative studios, etc., age-friendly space for children, etc. So I suppose that fed directly into what the building was to become, and we have decided that the building is to be a centre for creative lifelong learning. So this completely came out of the public engagement process. In order for the building to survive and be able to be managed, we felt we needed a main anchor tenant, and as part of our consultation, a number of bodies actually put themselves forward for actually being the link on the project to take it forward with us. And we have settled on IADT, and they are already in another part of the town, the old Carnegie Library. They're going to be taking a long lease there, and the idea here is this building would run, it's quite close to it actually, and they actually would be able to then have an events manager, etc., etc. So we're working with them now, but obviously as part of the whole public engagement, we want to be really sure that it also contains all the community uses, that it's not going to be a closed door, third level institution. So we're actually drawing up sort of details with them at the moment about what time or what times of the year or what times of the week or what rooms will be available for other community, at no cost, low cost, etc. All the different bits that we want to bring in to have the wider sort of community need in it. So we then proceeded on, once we had decided that, and we did a Part 8 for the building. So that was April last year. It was granted on the 13th of April, and the Strand 2 deadline submission was the 14th of April. So so we got it in, and we were able to say we had our plan in, because we were in fear of our lives that if we didn't have sort of the equivalent of moving forward, that we mightn't get the funding. So we were delighted to actually successfully get the Strand 2 funding of 7 million that was granted in the autumn. So we've now gone on, and we are taking on a sort of a design team with all the different disciplines to support us to take it through. So OC&C are just about being appointed right now to take this through with us, and we're really looking forward to sort of the building that's going to come out of this. Just to put the building in its context, you can just see that little sketch in the middle shows in our urban framework plan, we were trying to create little linkages, creating a new street and then creating potentially a future little link, a pedestrian link. The sort of the L-shaped sort of dark building on the left is the old fire station, the front of which is protected, and that's going to be an Educate Together junior school, and that hopefully will be on site in about a year's time. And the two pictures on the right show what we started with, and then where we added in some housing there, and you can see that in the plan in the middle. So this is going back to the urban framework plan, where we're constantly trying to incrementally make improvements over the years. So the red brick building that you see there is part of this Thrive project. That's what we call the wash house. So this is the state of the wash house at the moment, just a couple of images of it. It's a former wash house from 1910, and this would have been where people in this area, which would have been the smaller houses, they would have gone there to wash when they couldn't afford to go to the baths buildings that were down on the seafront. So so that's one half of our little project. And these are the original drawings, and we're going to be using these to take, you can see all the windows are going to be put back in, etc. So it's going to act as a basis for that. And then the other second half of our building is sort of the dark grey rectangle on the corner, and that's what we call the former Kelly's Hotel. It was the first hotel in Dún Laoghaire, and it was also where they held the first sort of council meetings back in the day. So these are sort of the two little buildings, and then the little yard space between that we're actually going to be developing as part of our project. So interestingly, 65% or so of the people who actually engaged with our processes actually lived within 15 minutes of the area. So it was very much a local sort of people who were interested in it. And obviously lots of comments about how desperate the buildings were at the time. So I suppose the other little thing just to say that the other context, I suppose, are the policies that we're sort of interested in the council. The council is trying to be an age-friendly council, so actually it's quite pertinent that, again, to being inclusive, that the Thrive is supporting all of that. So we do lots of things to be an age-friendly county. We also, on the other hand, want to support all the youth. So a lot of the councillors are very supportive of young people, and these were some of the open house workshops. That's the fire station that's going to be the Educate Together junior school beside us. We have a Corlin and Og in the council, and then IADT is going to be bringing that sort of third level link into the building. We also have our disability consultation group that would represent various needs around the county, and we work closely with them on any buildings that we're sort of developing to sort of make sure that people's needs are sort of known from the outset. So we will go to them with drawings and plans, and then we'll bring them when we're at a safe stage on site, etc. So we work closely with them to try and make sure, so that, that would be physical things in the building, but also programmes and different things and how they're run, etc. So again, people very much felt that they wanted this to be a building for everyone. And I suppose just the little image there of the CSO, just to say that, the data does show that in Dún Laoghaire Rathdown we have sort of pretty much, I think, the most elderly population, So again, we're trying to facilitate that. We also have a lot of sort of people from different countries living in the town of Dún Laoghaire. So it's trying to provide services again for people maybe who wouldn't have maybe a wider circle. And also there are a lot of young people, but it is also a very quiet spot right here, just at the back of the main street. Just find 1 minute. Okay, I think I'm on my last slide. So this is just to say, there's very little here on the proposals. It's just to say that I suppose starting from the bottom, just the environs, we're sort of trying to design the building in its context. So we're also going to try and do a little bit of public realm with the building. So it will actually be then linking the bottom of the little slide at the top shows the link down from the main street, and then heading sort of top of the slide, you're heading down to the sea there. So it's at that crossroads. So we're going to do some public realm alongside it, but we're doing things like obviously the curbs, and we'll, for people with visually impaired, etc., and crossings and disabled parking, etc. So very much sort of public realm. Also sort of the biodiversity, trying to include all that in sort of along the street as well as best we can. Then within the building, the wash house is top of the drawing there. We'll be putting in a lot of physical features, obviously, to make the buildings accessible. The little blue area is showing what's going to be demolished, and there was a lean-to there in very, very, very bad repair, and that's coming down, and we're going to put up basically an accessible, basically a stair and lift core, and then we will get and a changing places bathroom. So this is really to say that we're trying to make our facilities as accessible as possible all the way up through the building at the different levels, and then the programs that actually work within them, they'll be made accessible by the fact that we will get different times, different slots, and maybe, for example, request IADT to do some, say, whatever, but back to education, studies or whatever. So we'll work on the programs, we'll work on the buildings ourselves, and then we're going to try and do some of the work in the public realm. So that's just some images of what actually the buildings should look like. And just close off with this running as the next person comes up. It just gives an idea of what it might look like. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Andrée. Grainne, you ready to go at speed?
Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's just this to go forward. Sorry, Emmeline.
Is it just that?
It probably is, yes. Well done.
Yeah, there you go. You're ready to go. Then you press that.
Perfect. Which, the green?
No, that one.
That one. Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, and thanks, Nikki and Emmeline. It's a real delight, actually, to be here until now. Okay, I'm talking about this project in Drogheda, which you've all read about. Okay, 2013, we prepared an urban design framework plan for Drogheda, for the Heritage Quarter, as it was called, but really it's the heart, the centre of Drogheda. And it stated, which shouldn't need to be said in a room like this, that Drogheda is a town of recognised urban quality, being amongst the more architecturally significant towns in the country. It's one of Ireland's largest medieval walled towns, probably was. It also said it possesses a remarkably strong urban structure and form. This quality of form must be understood as an asset which has value beyond that of the historic artefact, but also as a fundamental component of good urban placemaking for now and the future. And I'm totally with Julia, the public spaces and the buildings, it's all together. The intervening 13 years since has seen increasing vacancy, dereliction, and most recently building collapse within this area, effectively the commercial centre. And while the population of Drogheda has continued to grow in this period, and again we'll all know Drogheda and Dundalk have this lovely competitive rivalry about being the largest town in Ireland, and they both are really, but it's continued to grow with an affluent commuting population settling in new developments on the periphery of the town. This has been matched by social and economic challenges for several communities in Drogheda, and many of these communities are also more concentrated in the residential suburbs. The population of Drogheda is today made up of a diverse and large number of nationalities and ages, making for a rich cultural and ethnic mix. So Andrée kind of outlined the process behind these Thrive projects, and one of the first was to prepare an integrated urban strategy. We went back and visited 1/4 of the area we had looked at before, and out of the process, and I'll talk a little bit about it in the next slide, but identify this pipeline of projects. And what's interesting is there were other projects underway or in the plan or in the ether in this area. So we thought they really should work together rather than a series of individual projects. The engagement process, and in a way one always puts these kind of slides up about engagement, but I want to say, I mean, none of these processes are perfect and the engagement process is not over, but what was really positive in one way is it helped our understanding of the area, and it really highlighted the social and cultural and environmental impacts of long-term town centre vacancy on people's day-to-day lives, showing us how such impacts contribute to trauma, sense of trauma. It also revealed a very strong pride of citizens in Drogheda and their very certain awareness of its architectural qualities. So it was very motivating to see the desire for the town to improve. And the process has also helped us confirm, like Andrée, the project for Thrive, and brought forward potential uses and potential user groups, and we're continuing that conversation and discussion now. In fact, the one-to-one sessions in the engagement were probably the most productive. So the building is Westgate House, which is itself a palimpsest of historic fabric and function. It's like a mini city or town in itself. So it comprises medieval town wall, remnants of the terrace garden of 18th century Barlow House, 19th century Westgate House and rear outbuildings, early 20th century small-scale timber merchants' warehouse and yard, and latterly a guest house and youth development centre. And it's currently in a very precarious condition. That's just some of the wonderful historic maps and showing it. Of course, Westgate means it was built into Westgate. There's an east gate called Lawrence's Gate. And that kind of shows it from across the river, and you can see Barlow House in the background, and you can see the topography, and then in the earlier map, this wonderful sense, Alderman Barlow's garden, which was a terrace down to the river. So kind of remarkable potential. The building also, just to say, the first time I was in the building, we surveyed it on the 1st of January, or not the 1st of January, but January 2025. I was first inside the building last Friday. So it has just been too unsafe to enter. So fingers crossed, we will prop it and survey it, and hopefully the survey in January will align with the survey shortly. So we need a little bit of luck. I'm going to touch on, I suppose, in a sense, our approach. As I mentioned, it's a complex building. It's full of pretty much small spaces. The uses that there will be cultural uses. We've two potential end users in Throw. One is in let's say theatre use, but doing a lot of classes and training. And the other is a very interesting culture organisation that is working with some of the new communities coming into the area and assisting them, but also working with their cultural roots. It's called Culture Connects. Just in terms of the topography as well, we're looking at trying to overcome 5 different floor levels, in fact, perhaps 6. So what we have done is into the later building, we have inserted a kind of a new building, that's the intention, which will help us negotiate the differences in level and accommodate the primary circulation core. So it will provide accessibility to all of the different levels. And again, just to kind of show. And then around the back, and again, one of the big uses that came out of the discussion was to have an event space, a workshop space. We are really tight on public space. The site goes right up to a tiny little boundary. So the idea is to create a garden on the roof, and that will connect with the higher level, street level, and across to the old Abbey Lane. We would love more space. My last slide, and it's really to come back, and I'm not going to repeat what Angela said, but maybe it's just to say that this theme of quality and these quality principles, and I declare an interest, obviously an ICOMOS interest, but it's very useful. Conduct research and surveys first of all. Keep in mind the responsibility towards future generations. Keep the spirit of place. I suppose that's a mobile thing, a dynamic thing, and no one person can define what that is. That belongs really to everybody, and is often beyond words. Do as much and as little as necessary, and we heard earlier, as late as possible, and I'm all for that. We need more time. Call upon the required skills and experience at the right time, which is generally early on, and get them working together. Make it last. So I suppose we're spending people's money now. It should last, and that means its usability as well. And absolutely the governance of a project, of which, as an architect or a design team, you're only a small fragment in a wider governance. But absolutely the process. You can tell from how something works how it has been put together. So I find these very helpful, just to kind of keep in one's mind as one goes along. So what we would like to complete this project is more time. The NEB Baukultur, high quality Baukultur, ICOMOS quality principles are stretching our ambition. We want to go with it, but we do need more time. This project needs a little more space. Really, we want to make a public space outside. That's another conversation. And with our survey, we need a lot of luck. So thank you.
Thanks very much, Grainne, for re-emphasising the quality principles, and I think it's something which certainly I've had a conversation with Elena about marrying them in with the new European Bauhaus. Last but not least, Frank Cooney, architect, is going to talk to us about the Gorey Market House, which I understand has been very much led by the local community. Thank you, Frank.
Well, can you all hear me? Thank you very much, Nikki, and everybody. And Emmeline, I'd like to acknowledge Brian Brady, my colleague, who's worked on this project, a number of other projects, and also Oisin Cray, who's collaborating with us. Oisin of Design Forum can't be with us today. So, Gorey Market House, it's on this photograph, it's on the left-hand side. It's the one with the clock halfway along. Its project is due to go to construction stage mid this year. It's a TRIVE-funded project, Town Centre First Heritage Revival Scheme. Again, the new European Bauhaus, fully aligned from the very outset of the project, and this was something that was extremely important to all of the parties involved. Beauty, sustainable, together. I think, as this photo emphasises, the building is a modest building, one large space at first floor level, number of supporting spaces, and a open. The building is going to be conservation-led, opening up the ground floor, looking at how we address the public realm on the main street, but also linking through to a new square to the rear with a retractable canopy, and this becomes a public space with links to neighbouring streets and linkage. Respecting the context of the existing graveyard. And I just find the correct slide. Okay. The new European Bauhaus is at the centre of the project, as I've outlined, looking at how this building will address the public realm of the street. the linkage through to a new square at the back, a retractable canopy, further linkages to side streets, Market Square Street, and the new uses that get incorporated into that, which many people had previously seen as a backlands area. New cafes, artists in residence, public rooms for use by local people. It's been spoken about already. Beauty, the needs and experiences beyond functionality, activating, connecting, integrating, sustainability in harmony with nature, in harmony with its context, in harmony with the planet. But above all, the process that was used here, and a lot of it happened before we came on board, and we want to recognise all of the contribution of all the people who brought this project to its current stage. That principle of togetherness, the participatory process, the ambition set out very clearly from the beginning to include and to consolidate. Some photographs, the market house and its relationship to the street. The building has been substantially altered over time. It's been closed off at ground floor level. Cars interrupt the linkages with the public realm. The facade is altered, and what was seen as the backland was seen as a vacant backland. However, the Gorey Market House Festival, for 1 week of the year, the street becomes transformed. The market house becomes the focal point of the street. People experience the main street as a public realm differently. The depth and sincerity, and this is taken from comments made about the engagement process, the multi-layered engagement process. This included talks, events, the festival, meetings, presentations, workshops, open sessions, the Love Gorey website, which is something that I would encourage people to look at, the use of film, the use of media, the recording of the engagement people and the stories from the local people. The middle photograph shows some enabling works that have already commenced. The community engagement is multi-layered. It's embedded in the process from the very outset, from when this was just an idea. Led by the Kilmuckridge Gorey district, Philip and later Anita. The involvement with North Wexford Historical Society. The process whereby the people of Gorey passionately contributed their ideas, their hopes and their reflections. That before any drawings were prepared, before any designs were developed. By the time we came on board, we were really struck by the sincerity of this process, and it's something that we fundamentally believe, and we carry out a lot of public engagement, and we weren't involved in the earlier stages of public engagement on this project, but it's quite impressive. I think one of the things that's come true on many of the reports is what the market house means to the people. It's deeply embedded in the memory of the people, uniqueness, that the future matters deeply, okay, and there's a very strong emotional connection. On the left-hand side image shows the new linkage and the new relationship with the main street, or the recreation of the relationship with the main street, or the reinterpretation. The linkages through the ground floor of the building to a new, vibrant space to the rear with this retractable canopy and compliments to all of the people who've really worked on developing, you know, the thoughts and technical responses as well about how to make a simple covered space that can work very well. The as I've outlined previously, the uses within the existing building: one large space at floor level, two little small supporting spaces, a new link providing complete universal access, and a link through to the back where we have cafe, green roof, use of the roof as a terrace, art spaces, community spaces. Opportunities. The past linked through this process, this fantastic new European Bauhaus process, contributing to a very exciting and a future that is embedded in it coming out of the place and coming out of consultation with the people of Gorey. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm sorry we've really overrun, so to be fair, we need session 5 to start straight away. Thank you very much for all the speakers. Thank you.